Today, Multan is known as Madinat al-Awliya, the city of saints, famous for its green-shrouded Sufi shrines and the soulful songs of qawwals echoing at dusk. But centuries ago, Multan carried a very different title, the City of the Sun. At its heart stood a magnificent temple dedicated to the sun god. Kings and pilgrims alike crossed the desert to reach it, bringing gold and jewels to lay before a glittering idol of Surya. Multan's fortune and fate were once bound to that temple. One popular legend from Multan's past hints at this old devotion. It tells of a wandering mystic, Shah, who arrived in the city long after the temple's glory had faded. Tired and hungry, Shams carried a piece of raw meat through the bazaar, asking if anyone could help cook it. The locals, proud and dismissive of the stranger, refused him even a small fire. Undeterred, Shah stepped into the town square, held the meat up to the sky, and prayed softly. To everyone's astonishment, the blazing sun began to descend from the sky. It came so close that its heat roasted the meat in seconds. The air shimmered, the earth sweltered, and panic gripped the town. The people begged Shams to spare them. The saint smiled and sent the sun back to its distant perch. Ever since that day, they say, the sun never returned to its original distance, leaving Multan the hottest city in the land. This colourful tale hints at a deeper truth. Multan was once a city where the sun was literally worshipped. To understand how that came to be and how it changed, we must journey back in time to an age when people everywhere gazed up at the brilliant sun and saw not just a star but a god. For thousands of years, cultures across the world revered the sun. It's easy to see why. The sun brings warmth, light, and life. Its dependable rising each morning inspires hope, and its setting each night can instill fear as darkness falls. Ancient Egyptians praised Ra as the ruler of the sky, and Mesopotamians honored Shamash, the sun god of justice. The Greeks told of Helios riding his chariot across the heavens, later identifying him with Apollo, while Romans celebrated Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, during midwinter festivals. In the Americas, the Maya aligned towering pyramids with the sun's cycles, and the Aztecs offered human hearts in sacrifice to keep the sun shining. However, from the Middle East rose a very different understanding, that the sun, for all its glory, is not a deity, but a creation. The Abrahamic faiths taught this revolutionary idea. The Quran recounts how the prophet Abraham, once searched for the true God. One night he saw a bright star and said, "This is my Lord," only to change his mind when the star set. He saw the radiant full moon and said, "This one is my Lord," but by dawn it too was gone. At sunrise, Ibrahim beheld the sun and declared, "This must be my Lord, it is the greatest." Yet when evening came, the sun also vanished. Finally, Ibrahim understood and proclaimed, "I have turned my face toward him, who created the heavens and the earth, and I shall not associate others with God." In that moment, the illusion was shattered. How could something that rises and sets be God? The sun and the moon were not lords to be worshipped. They were merely lamps lit by the command of the one true Creator. They were creation, not creator. Nowhere was the sun cherished as a god more than in ancient India. Hindu tradition personifies the sun as Surya, a golden deity who rides across the sky in a chariot drawn by 7 horses. Surya is the giver of life, the dispeller of darkness, and the heavenly witness to all deeds. The earliest Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, call the sun the eye of the world. To this day, many Hindus greet the dawn by facing the rising sun and offering water, letting sunlight refract through the water in their hands, a humble thank you for the new day's light and energy. Indian legends speak of how deeply the sun's favor was sought. One popular tale says Samba, the son of the god Krishna, was cursed with leprosy and could only be cured by years of devoted worship to Surya. Samba's penance lasted 12 years, and in the end, the sun god healed him. In gratitude, Samba built 12 sun temples across India. One of them, and the grandest, it is said, was at Multan, a city once known as Sambapura, the city of Samba. Another tale from Multan's lore tells of a pious king, sometimes called Jibawin, who built a colossal sun temple in the city and buried a vast treasure beneath it as an offering to his beloved deity. Mythical or not, these stories indicate that by the early centuries of the Common Era, Multan had become one of the world's great centers of sun worship. Multan's sun temple, known in Sanskrit as the Aditya Deval or Mulasthana, from which some believe the name Multan is derived, was famed far and wide. It stood near the old fort by the river Chenab, drawing pilgrims and princes alike. Inside its inner sanctum stood a grand idol of Surya that dazzled all who beheld it. According to accounts, the idol was carved of wood, but plated entirely in gold, and it had 2 gems for eyes, gigantic rubies that glinted like twin suns in the darkness. Each morning, the first rays of dawn would pierce the temple doorway and illuminate that idol, making the whole shrine glow as if the sun itself had come down to dwell there. The temple was carefully aligned with the rising sun to create this effect. Around 641 CE, the Chinese traveller Xuanzang visited Multan and left a vivid description. He marvelled at the temple's lavish decorations and the throngs of worshippers crowding its halls. He noted that the image of the sun was made of shining gold with eyes of deep red gems, and that pilgrims journeyed great distances to offer flowers, perfumes and gold coins at its feet. The temple priests kept oil lamps burning and incense smoke curling upward day and night in devotion to Surya. The wealth and splendour of Multan's sun temple became legendary. Later, Arab geographers described it as a place of fabulous riches. The 10th century writer Al-Maqdisi even called Multan the Mecca of the Hindus because of its importance to devotees. Generations of worshippers had donated gold, silver and precious jewels in thanks for answered prayers or in hope of curing ailments, like Samba's, and earning the sun god's favour. Whoever ruled Multan held not just a city, but a treasure house on India's frontier. No wonder some Muslim historians nicknamed Multan the frontier of gold. For centuries, as the sun rose and fell over Multan, the daily rituals at the temple continued unabated. Devotees gathered at dawn and again at noon. They circumambulated the shrine, ringing bells and chanting Vedic hymns. They offered garlands of marigolds, bowls of ghee, sweets and coins to Surya's idol, truly believing that the sun god watched over their city and ensured its prosperity. In Multan, the sun reigned supreme. By the 8th century, however, history was on the move. A new faith, backed by armies and a zealous belief in one invisible god, was knocking at the gates of India. The son of Multan was about to face a formidable challenge. In 711 CE, a teenage general named Muhammad bin Qasim led an Arab army into Sindh. He came as a commander of the Umayyad Caliphate, determined to extend Muslim rule into the rich Indus Valley. By 712, Qasim had captured the great port of Dibal near modern Karachi and defeated the region's Hindu rulers in battle. When the first Arab armies heard of Multan, they were tantalized by tales of a temple filled with gold. In fact, Muhammad bin Qasim, the young general of the Umayyad Caliphate, had his eyes on Multan in part because of its reputed treasures. His campaign swept northwards with astonishing speed. City after city fell to the sword of Islam. Eventually, Qasim's army reached the fortified walls of Multan, the city of the sun itself. In 713 CE, Muhammad bin Qasim laid siege to Multan. The city's defenders held out bravely, as arrows darkened the sky and desert winds whipped dust into their eyes, but after a fierce struggle, Multan's resistance crumbled. Qasim entered the city, eager to claim its treasures, and Multan did not disappoint. As the conquerors moved through the city, They came upon the Sun Temple and discovered its hidden vaults of wealth. One account says that when Qasim's men dug beneath the idol's platform, they found treasure beyond their dreams. 13,200 man gold, tens of thousands of gold coins and jewels, perhaps the very offerings of generations of pilgrims, and the legendary stash King Jibawin had buried for the sun god. This incredible loot earned Multan the moniker City of Gold among Qasim's entourage. Yet Qasim now faced a dilemma. As a devout Muslim, he was duty-bound to destroy the idol and eradicate idolatry. In orthodox Muslim belief, such a temple of idol worship should have been destroyed. But his pragmatic side saw another reality. The Hindu population of Multan deeply cherished this temple. If he wrecked their beloved god, the people might revolt and undo all his gains. Besides, the temple was a golden goose. Destroying it would mean losing a huge source of wealth. In the end, Qasim chose a clever compromise. He did not demolish the Sun Temple. Instead, he allowed the people of Multan to continue their worship of Surya under certain conditions. The Hindus of the city were classified as dhimmis, protected non-Muslims, which meant they could practice their religion as long as they paid a special tribute to their new rulers. Qasim placed the temple under state supervision and levied a hefty tax on its income. By some accounts, 1/3 of all the temple's revenue had to be given to the government as the price for leaving the idol intact. In essence, the idol became a steady source of income for Multan's rulers, a golden goose to be kept alive and plucked rather than slain outright. Under this arrangement, life in Multan continued as before. Pilgrims still came, priests still chanted, and the sun still received its daily libations. But now a portion of every offering flowed into the Muslim governor's treasury. This uneasy coexistence benefited everyone. Multan remained peaceful and fabulously wealthy, and Qasim and those who ruled after him enjoyed a steady revenue stream without resorting to mass conversion or wanton destruction. When the Abbasid Caliphate replaced the Umayyads in 750 CE and took charge of the region from Baghdad, they installed new governors over Sindh and the Punjab. These Abbasid officials, being Orthodox Sunnis, were less comfortable with the idea of a functioning idol temple under their rule. Yet they too refrained from destroying the Sun Temple, recognizing that it kept the local populace content and the coffers full. The sun idol of Multan remained standing, publicly worshipped and protected by rulers whose own faith forbade idolatry. On more than one occasion, the temple's existence even shielded Multan from attack. According to folklore, when a powerful Hindu king from a neighboring land prepared to invade, the Muslim ruler of Multan sent a stark warning: "If you attack, we will destroy the idol of Surya ourselves." No devout Hindu general wanted to be responsible for the obliteration of one of Hinduism's holiest icons. More than once, this threat alone was enough to ward off an invasion. Ironically, the idol that survived by Muslim tolerance also survived by serving as a hostage, guaranteeing the city's safety. This peculiar balance could not last forever. By the 10th century, new forces and ideas were making their way into Multan, forces far less willing to tolerate the old sun worship. In the early 900s, a revolutionary Shia Muslim movement, the Ismaili Fatimid dynasty, rose to power in North Africa and the Middle East. The Fatimids followed the Ismaili branch of Shi'ism and saw themselves as the true caliphs and spiritual leaders of Islam. They were challenging the Abbasid Caliphate everywhere and had seized the Abbasid territories in North Africa. They dispatched missionaries eastward, seeking to win converts and challenge the Sunni Abbasids, even in far-off regions like the Indus Valley. Multan, wealthy and strategically located, naturally drew the Fatimids' interest. Their missionaries gained a foothold in the city, quietly preaching allegiance to the Fatimid Imam in Cairo instead of the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad. In 959 CE, the Fatimid Caliph al-Mu'izli dan Allah dispatched an Ismaili envoy and missionary named Jalam bin Shayban to Sind and Multan. Jalam's mission was to establish Fatimid control over the region. Gathering a force of local Ismaili converts and mercenaries, he swiftly overthrew Multan's Abbasid-aligned ruler and seized the city. Once in power, Jalam had the khutbah, Friday sermon, proclaimed in the name of the Fatimid Caliph, the clearest and most symbolic declaration of legitimate sovereignty in the Islamic world. He declared the city's loyalty to the Fatimid Caliph in Cairo, publicly renouncing the authority of the Abbasids. Multan was now an Ismaili statelet, a Shia enclave in a mostly Sunni region. The Fatimids had planted their easternmost outpost at the very edge of the Indian subcontinent. The geographer Al-Maqdis later recorded that in Multan it was the Fatimid Imam Caliph who was acknowledged by the people, not the Abbasid ruler, underscoring the reach of Ismaili influence far from Cairo. This was more than a political coup, it was a religious upheaval. The Ismailis, with their own doctrines, were often seen as heretics by Sunni Muslims. Now, they controlled a city where a giant Hindu idol still stood at the center of public life. To the new Ismaili regime, this was unacceptable. The old compromise that Muhammad bin Qasim had made, tolerating idol worship for the sake of peace and profit, was anathema to them. In their eyes, allowing a massive idol to be venerated in Multan was an intolerable blot of shirk, idolatry, on a city that should be devoted to the one true God. Around 963 CE, the Ismaili rulers of Multan finally acted. They ordered the great idol of Surya to be destroyed. Soldiers marched into the Sun Temple and did what the earlier Muslim conquerors had refrained from doing. They smashed the revered idol to pieces. The temple's immense treasury was looted on the spot. Much of the gold and jewels was reportedly sent off to Cairo as a trophy for the Fatimid Caliph. To ensure the sun god of Multan could never rise again, some accounts say the remnants of the idol were burned or thrown into the river. In place of the temple, a mosque was established so that Multan's central worship would now be dedicated to Allah alone instead of the sun. For the Ismailis, allowing Surya's worship to continue was unthinkable, a betrayal of the principle of tawḥīd, or God's oneness, they championed. Destroying the idol was not just a devout act, but a bold statement of loyalty to their Fatimid masters. Where earlier Umayyad and Abbasid rulers had spared the idol for worldly gain, the Ismailis cast themselves as pious reformers who would tolerate no rival to God. They wanted it known throughout the Muslim world, especially in Cairo, that they had achieved what Qasim and the Abbasids never dared. The Sun Temple was not merely a source of wealth, it was the beating heart of Hindu prestige in Multan. By tearing it down, the Ismailis claimed not just political victory, but spiritual supremacy over the city. They removed the symbol of Hindu power and showed they valued faith over gold. The message rang out clearly. Baghdad might value gold above faith, but Cairo values faith above gold. The Fatimid Ismailis were not simply destroyers, they were builders of a new religious vision, one rooted in their esoteric understanding of tawḥīd and allegiance to the Imam Caliph in Cairo. For Multan's people, the fall of the temple was seismic. Hindus who had lived under earlier Muslim tolerance now fled or were pressured to convert. Pilgrimages from distant Hindu kingdoms stopped at once. There was no idol to visit anymore. The temple that had defined Multan for centuries was gone, its halls silent, its wealth confiscated by the new regime. To devout Muslims, the destruction of the Sun Temple was a victory of tawḥīd over idolatry. It echoed the Quranic tale of Prophet Sulaiman guiding the Queen of Sheba away from sun worship when the hoopoe declared, "I found her and her people prostrating to the sun instead of Allah." Satan has made their deeds pleasing to them and turned them from the path so they are not guided, that they should not worship Allah who brings forth what is hidden in the heavens and the earth and knows what you conceal and what you reveal. Multan had survived many conquests, yet this was a metamorphosis at its very core. The city of the sun had lost its sun, yet the transformation came at a cost. With the temple's destruction, Multan lost the stream of Hindu pilgrims and their riches. The city's economy contracted and the Hindu community was left devastated. The Hindu population fled Multan. For a time, Multan persisted as a proud Ismaili enclave, but its golden age had dimmed. In their zeal for ideological purity, the Ismailis had also made Multan weak and more vulnerable. The Ismailis' moment in Multan was dramatic, but it was also short-lived. Their zeal destroyed the ancient idol, yes, but it also drained the city of its wealth and drove away Hindu pilgrims who had long sustained its economy. For a time, Multan stood as a lonely Ismaili outpost on the frontier, but their rule was fragile and their doctrines alienated many of the local Muslims. The Ismailis held power in Multan for only a few more decades. Their strict rule and the city's abrupt decline made them unpopular with both the locals and their neighbours. It was only a matter of time before another force swept them away. That reckoning came from the northwest, led by a zealous Sunni warlord. In 1008 CE, Mahmud of Ghazni invaded Multan. A fierce Sunni conqueror from Afghanistan, Mahmud was fiercely loyal to Sunni Islam and the Abbasid Caliph. He was notorious for his raids on India's temples. During one such campaign into India, hearing of Multan's wealth and eager to crush the Ismaili heresy, he attacked and captured the city. He considered the Ismailis heretics. The Ismaili regime was toppled, and Multan was absorbed into Mahmud's growing empire. By then, the Sun Temple was already gone. The Ismailis had denied Mahmud the chance of smashing that idol himself. Still, he seized whatever remaining treasures he could find and restored Sunni orthodoxy. Multan once again acknowledged the Abbasid Caliph, at least in name, and the last traces of Ismaili rule were stamped out. Multan began to move firmly into the fold of Sunni Islam. A few years later, the scholar al-Biruni visited Multan. In his Kitab al-Hind, he noted that the famed Sun Temple was no more and that Hindu pilgrims had entirely ceased coming to the city. The city of the sun had been eclipsed. But Multan's story did not end with armies or kings. Its true transformation came later, not by force but by faith. In the centuries that followed, Multan became known across the world as Madinat al-Awliya, the city of saints. Great Sufis arrived and made the city their home. These saints came not with swords or decrees, but with compassion and wisdom. They established khankas, spiritual lodges, cared for the poor and the sick, and guided people toward inner purity and devotion. One of the most famous was Sheikh Bahauddin Zakariya in the early 13th century, who founded a great Sufi center in Multan. His influence was so revered that even the Mongol invaders, according to legend, spared Multan out of respect for him. His grandson, Shah Rukn-e-Alam, was another celebrated saint. The magnificent tomb of Shah Rukn-e-Alam, built in the 14th century, still dominates Multan's skyline, a majestic dome of faith rising where perhaps a sun temple spire once stood. Remarkably, the descendants of Baha al-Din Zakariya, known as the Makhdums, continue to wield significant influence in the politics of the Indus Valley to this day, particularly in Multan, now part of modern-day Pakistan. And then there was Shah Shams Sabzwari, the saint whose miracle began our story. Shah Shams arrived from Sabzwar in Persia during the turbulent 1200s, a time when the Mongols had overrun much of Iran and the fortress of Alamut had been destroyed, scattering scholars, saints and Ismaili peers across the Islamic world. He himself was an Ismaili peer, carrying the torch of a silenced tradition eastward. He carried with him the esoteric teachings of the Ismaili imams, even if not explicitly representing them. In Multan, he found a people outwardly Muslim, yet still haunted by nostalgia for their bygone Sun Temple. Some quietly revered the old symbols of the sun, others clung to folk memories of Surya's benevolence. Shah Shams sought to show them that all power, even the radiant sun itself, was nothing but a servant of the one God. So the legends and stories say, when some locals doubted his message, Shams performed a dramatic miracle. In one version, as we recounted, he brought the sun down to cook a meal, astonishing and terrifying onlookers as the city sweltered under the sudden close heat. In another version, a group of skeptics actually challenged Shams. They demanded he prove that his God was greater than the sun they once worshipped. In response, Shams gazed upward and prayed, and the sun, which had shone overhead as reliably as ever, suddenly dimmed and began to descend in the sky. Daylight turned to a strange dusk, and the heat grew intense. People cried out in fear, thinking the end of the world was upon them. Those who had issued the challenge dropped to their knees trembling. Only when they begged for forgiveness did Shams pray again and allow the sun to return to its normal course in the heavens, symbolically toppling the old cult of the sun god. Literal or not, the message of this story was unmistakable. The mighty sun, which the people of Multan had worshipped for centuries, was shown to be nothing more than a servant of God. Any lingering attachment to sun worship in Multan was utterly extinguished. The people had seen or heard and believed that the greatest force in nature ultimately bowed to a higher power. From that day on, the people of Multan vowed to bow only to the Almighty, the creator of the sun, never again to the sun itself. Shah Shams spent the rest of his life spreading the light of Islam in Multan through gentleness and wisdom. When he passed away, his tomb became a beloved shrine. Even today, the shrine of Shams, decorated with beautiful blue and white tiles near the banks of the Chenab, draws pilgrims. Some say it was built by a Hindu prince who embraced Islam in Shams's honor. Visitors still come, feed the poor in his memory, and retell how a saint made the sun bow in Multan. The tale of Multan's Sun Temple is a microcosm of a larger shift in civilization. Over time, as new faiths spread and new ideas took root, the ancient worship of the sun faded in most places. Multan's Grand Temple was one of the first to fall, but it was not the last. Elsewhere in India, other sun temples met similar fates. In Kashmir, the majestic Multan Sun Temple was reduced to ruins by the 15th century. In Gujarat, the sacred Modera Sun Temple was abandoned and its idol lost. In Odisha, the colossal Konark Sun Temple, designed as Surya's chariot, was deserted by the 17th century, its sanctum left empty. One by one, Surya's great monuments became relics, open to the sky, but empty of worship. Yet humanity's reverence for the sun never truly disappeared. Even today, millions celebrate Chhath Puja, offering prayers to the setting and rising sun. The sacred Gayatri mantra is still recited at dawn to greet the day's first light. The practice of Surya Namaskar, sun salutations in yoga, has spread worldwide, a daily homage to the sun's energy. Far beyond India, Shinto followers in Japan honor the sun goddess Amaterasu, and neo-pagans in the West mark the solstices and equinoxes as sacred occasions. It seems we have never completely let go of the sun's glow. Still, as Prophet Ibrahim realized, the sun is a creation, not the creator. The Quran reminds us, do not prostrate yourselves to the sun or the moon, but to Allah, who created them. In Islam, prayers are forbidden at certain times of the day, based on authentic hadith. These forbidden periods include after the Fajr prayer until the sun rises, at sunrise, when the sun is at its zenith at midday, after the Asr prayer until sunset, and at sunset. The main reason behind this restriction is to avoid any resemblance to the practices of sun worshippers, who used to perform rituals during these exact times of sunrise, sunset, and midday. By forbidding prayer in these narrow windows, Islam makes a clear distinction between tawḥīd, pure monotheism, and shirk, idolatry. Multan learned this truth in dramatic fashion. The idol that was once fed with gold and protected by kings could not save itself nor save the city from the tides of history. Today, Multan's skyline still gleams at sunset, but now with the domes of saints' shrines. Those shrines are lit with oil lamps and echo with devotional songs dedicated not to the sun, but to its maker. And when the fierce summer sun beats down on Multan, some curse the heat, while others smile and remember Shah Shams, the saint who, they say, made the sun come down. What do you think, dear viewers? Was the fall of Multan's Sun Temple a tragic loss of a rich heritage, or was it the righteous triumph of tawḥīd over falsehood? Who handled Multan's fate better, Muhammad bin Qasim, who spared the Sun Temple for the sake of peace and profit, or the zealous Ismaili rulers who destroyed it in the name of true faith? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to Darvesh Chronicles and hit the bell icon for more stories of faith, power and civilization. Until next time, may peace and blessings be with you.